Hi, welcome to Reddit Tea Time. I'll try to make this as short as possible. My older brother has always been a very complicated person. He was always getting into trouble, and he has been to prison a few times for some white-collar crimes. He divorced his second wife about a year ago, and it was a nasty divorce. A lot of things came out about him that I don't think anybody knew, mainly being that he definitely has an addiction to sex and porn, but thankfully nothing illegal. But still gross if you're married for sure. Anyway, his then wife found out about all the other women, about the hookers and the out-of-town trips to meet other women, and it was bad. They went through a really nasty divorce, and my brother was not nice about it even though he was in the wrong. He pressed charges against her for throwing his phone and public disturbance. I mean, the judge really took his side over hers. He got a payout from her house that was only in her name. She had to pay him about $60,000 in equity, even though he never paid rent, but he did contribute to some household renovations. So fair to say she's very hurt and angry, and I don't blame her. He's my brother, and I try not to get in the middle of it, but I also don't talk to him about the stuff that he's done because he completely shuts down. There's no talking to him about anything besides superficial things, so I've learned to just not go there, and we don't have much of a relationship to begin with. Well, let's forward to now. She contacted me last night to let me know that she had just been hired at the place that he works at. She starts next week. She also found out that he's now engaged to a girl that's 18 years younger than him, so she has every intention of going in there, providing proof and receipts of all he did dirty to her. Am I the bonehead for not warning him so he can maybe do damage control or maybe get the hell out of there and find a new job before his reputation is ruined? I don't blame her for being angry, but he's also my brother, and I do worry about him being fired and him losing his livelihood. And he does have 2 kids to support, so I'm just really torn and I feel bad either way. Update. I talked to my mom and we decided to tell him. He took it as he usually does, just kind of laughed it off. Thank you everyone, I appreciate the input. Now for some comments. You would be the bonehead. The only reputation she's going to ruin is her own. As someone who works in HR, don't bring your personal drama to work. Your workplace doesn't care that your ex-wife hates you. We do care about a disruptive new employee causing problems though. If she doesn't need this job and it's all an elaborate revenge plot, have at it. But if not, she's just ruining her own life at this point. OP replied, well, to complicate matters even more, her best friend is one of the head honchos. She can't stand my brother, but she couldn't fire him because of what he did to his ex, so they just learned to ignore each other at work. But I don't know what her thinking is hiring his ex. It makes me think she's up to something, both of them. You would be the bonehead. So she applied at a place that she knows he works at. She hasn't even started yet, but she knows he works there and that he's engaged to another person. It does appear she may have gotten a rotten deal, but if he put $60,000 into repairs and renovations into what was probably the marital home, I'm not surprised he got a payout. Marriage complicates things, legally and otherwise. Should the other girl know about her fiancé's past? Yes. Should that come from his ex-wife who, by all intents and purposes, appears to be stalking him with the intention of breaking up his engagement and potentially getting him fired? This is, of course, assuming that she doesn't already know about his issues in addiction and faithfulness. Very soft, you're the bonehead. I completely understand how ex-wife feels, but she's now continuing the drama instead of moving on. Who the hell starts working at their ex's job? If you found out accidentally, I would say not the bonehead and stay out of it, but she has put you in a position. If you don't tell him, ex-wife will for sure let him know that you knew all along. OP replied, yes, this is information I did not want to know. I've told her before, don't put me in the middle. I saw how much he hurt her. She literally fell apart, but I know it isn't healthy for her to hold on to all this hate. My ex and I split in April. By May, he was bringing his new girlfriend to all my 15-year-old son's baseball games. The families were gossiping about it, and my son was uncomfortable with it. My 14-year-old daughter had told me she hated having the new girlfriend around too, and my ex wasn't respecting her requests to slow down. After a few times seeing her, I walked up to her and introduced myself. This wasn't about her or my ex. It was to stop the gossip, show my kids that I'm okay with his relationship, and to stop the gossip. Today, several weeks later, the ex emailed me that I violated his boundaries by doing this. Am I the bonehead? For some background, I asked for the divorce and we've been broken up for a year, but he moved out in April. I have a boyfriend and I'm not jealous of the new girl. He's her monkey and circus now. Now for some comments. Not the bonehead. Introducing yourself to her in a public place is absolutely okay. You didn't speak poorly about him, you didn't do anything wrong. And you can't violate his boundaries by doing something. That's not how it works. Not the bonehead. You introduced yourself to a person in the same vicinity as you, who was likely interacting with your children. Sounds perfectly reasonable to me. Not the bonehead. If he didn't want you to meet the new girlfriend, he shouldn't have brought her to your son's games. Not the bonehead. Introducing yourself to someone associated with your children in a public setting, especially at one of your children's games, is perfectly appropriate. Frankly, and I may get slammed for this, I don't think it would be inappropriate to say that she was making the children uncomfortable by being there so early in the relationship. Doesn't sound like you even went that far, so you're not the bonehead here. Full story. I don't like my mother-in-law. When I first met her, it was to go to an important holiday dinner hosted by my husband's then-boyfriend extended family. She met us at the hotel and met me before we went, but then took my husband aside and said I needed to change clothes because I looked like a loose woman. I cried. My husband said we weren't going anymore and told his mom to leave. We made up later. As my husband and I dated, I learned more about his relationship with her. They didn't talk often before me or since. He went to visit her one time alone. Flash forward and he hasn't seen her for a while. For whatever reason, they never coordinated a time for her to visit, or we always had some excuse. Finally, she calls my husband and says she's coming this weekend to visit. It's Tuesday night. I immediately say no when my husband tells me. I tell him that my nephew will be in on Sunday morning and she would drive 16 hours one way. He hesitates but agrees and tells his mom it can't be this week, pick another time. His mom guilts him, says there's always some excuse and that I don't like her. She says she feels like if she doesn't come see him right now, she may never see him again. So he decides to let her come with some conditions of not seeing the house and not seeing me. I respect his choice, but I'm still mad because regardless of their relationship and the repair they need, he still let her come out last minute and stay 2 days before I have company for a week. I'm mad he didn't see that as impolite and selfish. We fought and he said, she's right, I do have to choose. This sucks. Am I the bonehead? Not the bonehead. I've never been a fan of people inviting themselves over to stay without asking first. It sounds like she thinks you're going to keep putting her off, and honestly, it sounds like you want to. Explain that you have a lot going on, and give her some dates that will work for you for her to come visit. Not the bonehead. Your husband is the bonehead for not giving his mother a firm no. His compromise only makes you look bad and you and him look divided, which is probably what mother-in-law wants. Info. Your husband is saying that she'll not stay or even see your house. You don't have to see her. She's definitely wrong to assume she could visit without checking and wrong to assume that she would stay there. But your husband came up with a solution that means you don't have to see her. They don't talk often and you don't see her often. So is your issue that you just don't like her? That would be fine based on her past behavior. But if that's the real issue, can you tell him that? OP said, it's hard for me to say that she won't come visit the house even with my husband's boundaries. She's never respected them before, as clearly shown by telling us she's coming out of nowhere. And he'll be completely occupied. I have zero trust that she'll 1. Only take his free days, and 2. Not come to the house unannounced. For more context as to why the staying at home weekend is important. My husband is nocturnal. He works night shift, so I only sync up and see him on the weekends. The past 2 weekends we've been out of town or busy with commitments, and my nephew will be here for the next 2 weekends. We try and have date night once a month for us to connect. This would be that weekend. One commenter said, as long as she's not in your house, what does it matter? Another commenter replied, it screws up OP's plans to relax and spend some time with her husband on the only weekend they have free together this month. Or do you think hubby will leave his mother all alone in the hotel to stay home? Also, her objection was half ignored. Yeah, mother-in-law stays in the hotel, but the free time, relaxing time with her husband is now gone because he has to cater to his mother instead of spending it with OP. Therefore, not the bonehead because mother-in-law invited herself and forced their hand with this. I'm planning for a semi-outdoor wedding in October. There'll be 50 to 60 people at the wedding. The theme is backyard barbecue. We're serving brisket and grilled chicken with baked and mashed potatoes. On our invitations, we stated the main dish and potato dish will be provided with beer and sodas. We also requested, instead of gifts, our guests bring a dish to pass as well as their own liquor. My fiancé and I are well established, so we have most of the things you'd normally bring as a gift for a wedding, and it just seemed rude to ask for cash as a gift. Also on the invitation was the RSVP number so they can tell us what they're bringing and to declare any additional guests, to prevent doubling up and to know how much food we need. One of my fiancé's friends contacted the RSVP number to say he's not bringing a dish, which is totally understandable as he's coming from out of state, and that it's bad to ask guests to feed themselves at a wedding. I'd run the idea by my mother before we made the invites, and she thought it was a little unorthodox, which means she's trying to be nice about hating the idea. She and my dad are cooking the main dishes. There have been a couple of other little comments from my coworkers who are also invited. I don't think there's an issue with asking since it's themed as a casual barbecue and we're providing the main food and drinks. I only think I'm the bonehead here because it's typically the host's job to take care of food and entertainment. Am I the bonehead if I request my wedding guests to bring a dish to pass? Edit. My lovely parents offered to cook the main food. I was going to hire out for it, but they said they'd be happy to do it instead. Also, I'm the one making the dessert. This is quite an informal event, and I'm not forcing or demanding anyone bring food. Just stating food would be a better option than a blender. Honestly, I don't care if they bring bags of chips, as I figured it'd be easier for people to just bring food they're actually going to eat instead of us guessing what people want and ending up with a ton of leftovers no one wants, like I've seen happen at other weddings. Not expecting anyone to bring enough food for the whole wedding. Didn't even say how many people could be there on the invite. Most of the people invited live close and know each other. The out-of-towners are my parents, but they'll be around for 3 days to help, again their choice, a couple of my fiancé's friends, as well as my maid of honor and her husband. Edit 2. There'll be plenty of main dish and potatoes. However, many people RSVP plus like 15 people's worth. I'm not starving my guests or anything. The dishes to pass are completely optional in the same way gifts or money would be. Edit 3. By established, I mean we have the things people would normally buy as wedding gifts. Blenders, pans, kitchen knives, and have a place to live. I don't mean we're rich or even true middle class, because we certainly aren't. Now for some comments. Yeah, I get what you're doing, but you're the bonehead. This is a wedding, not a potluck. Bring your own beer is okay to me, but asking people to make and transport food without the ability to keep it cold or hot is tacky. Rice and beans are inexpensive, maybe some coleslaw, and you're set. Not the bonehead. I think in lieu of gifts, asking for a dish is a fine idea. I've been to a couple of potluck weddings that have been really fun. The one I was a bridesmaid in, it was just a wedding party that was required to bring a dish, so 4 bridesmaids and 4 groomsmen. And the invitations included a recipe card for guests to share a recipe with the new couple, and an offer that they were welcome to bring their dish and share with others, optional. About 15 of the 40 or so guests brought dishes and most sent in recipe cards. There was plenty of food and people enjoyed talking about their special family recipes. To be fair, I'm from a pretty rural Midwest area, so attitudes around this are probably different elsewhere. So, know your audience, I guess. You're the bonehead. You could have positioned it as, feel free to bring a dish to share if you'd like, or even the pretty common, the only gift we need is your presence or whatever. You should still be providing enough food for guests. Telling them to bring food and then taking it further with demanding they communicate it to you for some spreadsheet, come on. This is a wedding, not an office potluck. Not the bonehead. You're not asking for gifts and you are feeding your guests. If they don't like it, they shouldn't come. And sure as hell should be uninvited for calling it a bad move. OP replied, he and my fiancé have been friends for a long time and I want him to be happy on our day. I just don't think it's worth arguing with my soon-to-be forever over a single wedding guest. I personally don't find anything wrong with what OP is doing, and I don't know why Reddit found her to be a bonehead in this case. I mean, she said it herself. There'll be enough food for everyone. And in lieu of asking for gifts or money, she's just asking people to bring something extra. It would be different if OP had set up some crazy bridal registry that required her guests to spend crazy amounts of money on gifts, and then on top of that, ask people to bring food as well. The way she's doing it, she's not even demanding any particular type of food. She's letting people decide what to bring. And people can bring a $3 bag of chips if that's what they want. I don't see what the problem here is. I think a lot of people are taking themselves too seriously and they really need to relax. What do you think? Please let me know in the comments below. If you liked this story, please consider subscribing. I really appreciate you spending your valuable time with me. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next Reddit story. In the meantime, please take care of yourself. Bye for now.